Hey everyone, this is Jeremy with RC Collaborative. Today we interview Adam Drake.
Yo, I ain't here for the money, I ain't here for the fame. Though it might be nice to own a jet plane, I'ma do it all for you. Come along and see it's true, but the world is pretty cold, you might need a sweater too.
Okay, so Adam Drake came down to the DDH and Drake event that we just had December 8th at Dean's Discount Hobbies. And while he was here, he was kind enough to do a little interview with me and kind of like a Q&A session. I asked a bunch of questions about the AT, some of the Flashpoint products, and the Proline tires. Tires, I still don't understand all the brands and all the compounds and how to differentiate between what to use and where and when. And Adam really kind of broke it down quite simply and made it easy for me to understand. And this is why I wanted to talk to him and talk to other sponsored drivers and get their viewpoint of the products. I was expecting him to pull out like a massive bag of tires and say X brand, like this model is good here for this, and no, it was really, it kind of boiled down to the compounds. And the way he explained it, it made it easy for me to understand, and I hope that it helps somebody out there who has questions about Proline tires. And then also, I run a 7 TR truggy, and I was thinking about the 8 truggy, or also upgrading mine to be an 8, or at least get the front arms on my 7 truggy, so that way I could get the durability. But with Adam's help, he kind of explained the upgrade path and why it might be easier or better just to buy an 8. There's a lot that you need to upgrade. Instead of me summarizing it, I'll just let you hear it from Adam yourself. And then we also talk about some OS motors, which ones are DLC coded, which aren't, and how Mugen Psyche has the Flashpoint brand of OS based motors. So I want to thank Dean Lloyd for helping make this happen, for having Adam Drake come down, and I want to thank Adam immensely for taking his personal time to help me and do the interview and answer my questions. It was extremely helpful to me, and I'm hoping that somebody else benefits from this information. I always find that if I have a question and I have trouble finding the information online, that's the kind of content I want to pass along. So when I find the answers, I want to share it with you guys, so that maybe it can help somebody else. So with that said, I really enjoyed talking to Adam. Adam, if you're watching, thank you so much for doing this. Thank you, Dean. Thank Jeff Boland for lending me his 8T truggy for demonstration, because I don't personally have an 8T, but I wanted to have one to show Adam and talk about. And Jeff Boland's truck is set up perfectly. So thank you, Jeff. So yeah, it was a great event. Thanks for coming down, Adam, and let's take a look at the interview. So we're here to talk about the MBX8T. It just released. I meant to get some of this content before it released, but the release just happened so quickly and whatnot. But we've got Jeff Boland's truggy here. He's running the ProTech servos with the Flashpoint motor, and we just pulled this thing off the track, and it's pristine. I'm really impressed with the truck. I've seen, the impression that I had before was that the 8 was designed for high traction, and it was made to answer some of the high traction tracks. Is that not really true?
Not so much. I mean, the biggest thing with the truggy, the first and foremost, our number one goal was to improve durability. With the 7 and even 6 and previous models, we always kind of had a problem with lower arms breaking, upper front arms breaking. So first and foremost, we wanted to take what we learned from the buggy as far as materials, increasing the thickness of the arm to make the truck more durable. And then from there, we wanted to make a truck that was more aggressive or rotated more through the middle of the turn, because the truck class is now getting closer to where it's like the buggy class, in the sense that you have to be able to go fast. Easy to drive is slow. So we wanted to make a truck that was more aggressive, naturally has more steering, but yet still has the grip and stability to be a comfortable, easy to drive truck. So those were kind of our main goals when we kind of sat down and started making our wish list for the 18.
That I heard some feedback that concurs with that, and Steve back over there, I had to come in and buy all the 7 arms because in 12 hours I broke 3 of them, and I was just like, oh my god, I had spare arms but not anymore.
Yeah.
So now I bought like a whole bunch more, and while we're talking about arms, I want to put the 8 arms on my 7R, and I quickly ran into 2 issues. One, the shock pins are now on the 8, so you need shock pins and the set screw. And
Yeah,
then
there's
also
actually quite a bit that you gotta change.
and then the drive shafts I'm hearing also are longer as well.
Drive shaft, lower arm, upper arm, shock pin. That's just for the front. Also, the steering tie rods need to be longer because, again, the arms are longer. It's not just a new material arm or a new design arm, it's also a longer arm. And then we use a narrower wheel hub. And then in the rear...
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, and then in the rear, you would have to run the wider 7R rear pivot. And again, longer drive shaft, longer turnbuckle. So there's quite a bit.
So if you do the front, you should do the rear then, because
Right.
it's really changing the geometry of the truck.
Yeah. The difficult thing is, because so much of the geometry changed from the 7T to the 8, is, sitting down and deciding, how much do you want to spend to
Upgrade.
kind of upgrade your truck versus just purchasing a new truck, because it is quite a bit of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, just that alone, I mean, the arms are like, what, $25 for 8 arms? Or no, they're $18 at A-Main, I believe, $17.99. Then you got shock pins and everything else, and then I didn't know, people are like, just throw 8 arms on your truck. So I bought some and quickly found out it's not going to work. You need to do a lot to it. And so if somebody wanted to upgrade, they'd be better selling their 7 and just getting an 8.
Yeah, again, it just depends. Like, if your 7's in really, really good shape and your chassis is fresh, it might be a better route for you to buy the parts to upgrade it. But if your 7 has the older diffs or your chassis is a little worn out, there's no point in putting a bunch of money into something that's essentially outdated. So it'd be something to kind of save up and try to consider just getting a new 8.
Yeah, that makes sense. I really wish I had bought an 8 before. I had all electric stuff. So the motors, ESC, batteries, none of it helped me. I had to start completely over. You got double servos, and I like to buy good servos because I don't like to have the issues everyone does with their servos dying. I've got a Protec servo in my e-buggy, and it's a tank. I'm really happy.
Awesome.
I'm really happy with that. And then, so I should have gone with the 8 because the things I want out of the 7, I can't really get out of it. And I had the wrong impression that it was designed for like a higher bike track. Jeff's talking about this Flashpoint. Did you guys just start a relationship with Flashpoint? Like, what's up with that?
Flashpoint is basically a brand of Mugen USA. It's a separate company, but it's more or less a brand of Mugen.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And it shares the OS base, right?
Correct. The FPL1 is it's basically a OS Spec 2, which is same as the 110% engine. The only difference is obviously the Flashpoint branding, and then also the crankshaft is not DLC coded.
Which ones are DLC coded?
Pretty much any of the actual OS-based engines or in the OS Speed line have the DLC coding. If it's in the OS Max line, it's not DLC coded.
Okay, and so you have a motor that's Drake branded, or it's your model. So that looks like a Spec 2 base, right?
No, it's actually its own engine. It's not something that's been sold by OS under a different name. This was developed by myself along with OS to make it kind of my own spec. And it's it shares some parts from other engines, but it's not an engine that's ever been produced by OS. Essentially, we started with the B2101, which is kind of OS's most popular engine, and then we increased the stroke, added an additional tungsten slug, and then changed the porting on the sleeve to make it its own new engine.
What's a slug?
It's basically a counterweight in the crankshaft to help balance it, and it also helps create more torque.
Okay. I didn't mean to get into engine talking, but now the questions are coming in. So the ones that are filled with like rosin, or they drill the cranks out and they fill them with an epoxy fill, is that for lightning, like reducing weight?
I mean, like the OS engines, they are silicone putty filled, but they're not like drilled out and then filled with it. It's just to help the flow of the air coming in the carburetor into the crankshaft to make it more efficient.
Okay, so that's inside the crank, but it helps the carburetor.
Well, it takes the air from the carburetor and then it goes to the crankshaft and then through the crankcase.
Okay. Yeah, I was looking at a crank the other day and it had like valleys in it. It looked like it sucked in the fuel and the air, and I didn't know a lot about two-strokes until recently. I've always wondered how they lubricate the crankshaft and stuff, and I see how it goes directly through the whole thing and how it works now. It makes more sense. And then you sell the Flashpoint motors directly through Mugen's website.
Through Mugen and also Flashpoint.rc.com.
Okay.
You can get them through Dean's. Basically anyone that carries Mugen or Flashpoint stuff can get them.
Sweet, sweet. So we're here at Dean's Discount Hobbies. This track, I feel like it's got a lot of traction, but then sometimes it doesn't. Like, how do you classify the traction on the track?
So when I was here earlier this year, it was a little warmer, and I would say the track had a little bit more grip than it did today. Today there was parts where the grip was just as high, but then there was also spots where it still had some moisture in it, and the moisture doesn't allow the track to kind of take rubber and groove up. Mm-hmm. So there was parts that were lower grip, and then there were parts that were still very high grip. So it was still, again, high grip in some spots, medium to low grip in others, but typically here it's very high grip.
Right, yeah, I learned a hard lesson, like the first race I actually got to run here. My tires, after like one qualifier, before they changed the track, it was a bunch of left turns. So my right tires were just gone on the right side. It was very abrasive.
Yeah, definitely when the track dries out and grooves up, you can go to a much harder tire. With the harder tire, you'll gain stability, it'll be more precise, and then also the longevity of the tire will last. That's what's really good with like the newer S compounds from Proline, is they're really consistent over the course of a long run, especially in hot conditions, and then the tire life is considerably longer than any of the other compounds.
And the S compound, since you brought that up, that was the X3 compound and they renamed, or they replaced it, or what happened with that?
The S compounds are replacing X. It's Proline's long wear category or compounds. But yeah, so they'll have S2, S3, and S4. And just depending on how hot or how abrasive the track is, you would then pick a lower number if it's hot and higher grip. And if it starts to cool off but still has that blue groove, you would run like an S4.
Man, that's so many options. And then like on this track here, there's shade all on the left side, and on the right side, especially that back stretch, it's no shade. So it's like driving on one track into another track once you get to that one part.
Yeah, I mean, I like to narrow it down. I mean, for me, being that I was here earlier this year, I had kind of an idea of what the track was going to do, unless we got something crazy with the weather. So for me, I just kind of made it simple. I brought hole shots and buck shots in M3 and S3. So if it's really wet and still kind of tacky, I run M compounds. Once it's clean and starts to groove up, I run S compounds.
And that's when it becomes more aggressive and you need the longer wear. Okay. All right, you were flying out there today. I was watching you as closely as I can without neglecting the other people. I mean, mostly when you guys run, you're pretty clean, so it gave me a lot of time to watch. And man, your car gets, and it's the turns that I need to learn how to turn.
Yeah, the big thing is like, you know, you get excited on the driver's stand and you think more throttle is faster, and especially on a track layout like we have here, it's fast, but it's also pretty tight, and the precision of slowing down and hitting your mark is far more important than, you know, being on throttle too long. So you want to make sure you slow down early, get on the brakes before the turn, let the car roll through the turn, and then accelerate hard out. And if you miss the turn and kind of come in too hot or go too deep past the apex, then you miss the groove, you're in the dust, then you're loose, and it's hard to get back going again.
Right,
so,
and then you got others coming behind you, and they're going to knock you back into the dirt.
Yeah, so slow is fast.
That's awesome. So basically, 7R upgrade to 8 isn't really going to happen. I know a lot of people did upgrades from the 7R buggy to the 8.
Yeah, so the buggy was much easier because the buggy, even though the buggy has almost all new parts, the pivot widths, the drive shaft lengths, and the arm lengths were the same.
The geometry, basically?
Geometry was very similar from the 7 to the 8 buggy, but on the truck, we changed rear pivot width, arm length, front arm length, and along with that, you then have to change turnbuckles, drive shafts, wheel hexes. So when it's all said and done, it's considerably more expensive to convert a 7 truck to an 8 than it was a 7 buggy.
Well, now that I think about it, so you've got the shorter hexes, but you got longer arms. So is the wheelbase the same, roughly?
So yeah, the width of the truck is the same. It's just how we get there, how it stacks up. So arms are 5 millimeters longer, but then the hexes are 5 millimeters.
So where do you get the tighter turning from on the 8?
A lot of it comes from the rear pivot. The rear pivot being wider, it allows the truck to kind of rotate.
What are you calling the rear pivot?
Like the C and the D block.
So these ones here, so you change these?
Yeah, the width of that is considerably wider.
Okay, so it's more aggressive on the back.
And then also, when you go to the narrower wheel hex, it changes the scrub radius, which allows the front end to kind of grip and grab through the turn.
Okay, and then you guys added a clunk.
No,
you still don't have a clunk?
Thing. No clunk.
What?
No clunk in the truggy. Because the truggy uses the same tank as a GT car. And in the GT cars, we're concerned with having the clunk where it can move in long sweeping turns, not picking up fuel.
Alright, so you're worried about not picking up fuel because of the long turns?
Yeah,
basically?
and in truggy, you normally run a little bit of extra line with the filter, so if you sit upside down a little bit, it's not a problem. I mean, we used this type of tank system for so many years. Yes, the clunk system is really nice, and it is an improvement, but for truggy, it's not a big deal. But the main reason for that was because the truggy and the GT car share the same tank, so we didn't want to do a complete new tank just for a nitro truggy.
Okay. Alrighty. Yeah, I don't really have a huge issue with running out of, like, I'll go marshal myself and be on the farthest part of the track, and I heard people say blip it, but I find that runs me out of fuel. I just don't touch it.
Yeah,
I just let it idle, and I usually make it there, and then I just pep it a few times, and I'm back in. So I don't really have a lot of issues with that. So I guess that really answers my questions for the truggy. I had a lot of questions, and I've asked people, and no one really knows, and where I had the wrong impression about low traction and whatnot. I guess the only other question I would ask you is, the carbon inserts are for super high bite track. When would you want those?
I mean, I normally run the carbon inserts just because it makes the steering more precise. If the track is low grip, or if it's really cold weather, the plastic inserts will be fine. It'll give you a little bit more grip. But as the temperature comes up or the grip comes up, the arms will then kind of get softer and flex. So the carbon inserts will stiffen that back up and give you a more precise feel with the steering.
Right, and obviously you wouldn't change your diff and shock fluid for the temperature changes outside, would you?
Shock fluid, yes. Diff fluid, I normally change diff fluid more for traction levels. Shock oil I'll change if there's a drastic change in temperature.
Okay. And so for the people who run here, we have some mugas that run around. Did you want to share your setup on the 8?
Yeah, I think the easiest thing just be, email me, or I'll send Dean a setup sheet from what I ran this weekend.
Okay.
And instead of trying to kind of go through every step, because I'm sure there'll still be things that people have questions about.
The setup sheets are pretty thorough. They have a lot of stuff on them. All right. Well, that answers all my question about the 8 then. Then did you have any input on tires then? So we kind of talk about here, Lake Park, I don't find it to be nearly as abrasive. It's kind of dusty. So in a situation like that, you wouldn't run the X or the S3s, you'd run the M's.
It depends. Again, if the track has a lot of moisture and it still kind of has that deep orange clay look to it, then you would still run M. But as soon as it starts to take on fuel and rubber and starts to get black, then you would switch to like an S compound. Maybe there, with it being dusty, you may run an S4 instead of an S3, just to give you a little bit more grip. But I would say it would be pretty similar as far as tires. Maybe instead of whole shot and buckshot, you would want to run buckshot or slide lock. Just a little bit taller pin that'll kind of cut the dust a little.
And that's
bit.
the new Proline tire, and it's got a big pin with a slot in the middle of it.
No,
right?
that's the Invader. That's the Invader.
It's
Well,
like
yeah, it does.
It's
have,
like a
yeah.
diamond shape with
Yeah.
a slot. And then you ran whole shots today?
Buckshot.
Buckshot. And so, would you probably ran the X?
S3.
Oh, so you did that. I keep thinking of the X. That's going to confuse me for the next 2 years.
Yeah, I mean the thing is with the X is it's going away. So as inventory is sold, S will be the replacement for it. So right now it's a little confusing because there's still both, but eventually it'll be pretty easy. M when it's wet, S when it's dry.
In your opinion, do you think tires go bad sitting in a bag in storage, or
No, I
have
mean
shelf life?
if they're sitting out on the shelf, they may dry out or oxidize a little bit, but in most cases they'll still perform fine. On a like 10 scale car, it's going to be a little more of a difference, but on like an 8 scale car, if the tires have sat, they're still good.
All right, and then do your opinions change for truggy? Like, what kind of tire would you run on a
No, I
truggy?
run the same. Like we don't have a slide lock for truggy, but I would probably run whole shot or buckshot here, and then at Lake Park, probably a buckshot.
Does buckshot kind of replace a blockade?
Yeah, blockade's still in the line, but the buckshot is a little bit lighter and just has a more nimble, precise feel. Where the blockade that's going to be the longest tire life or tread life, but sometimes it'll feel a little heavy and sluggish on the tread.
Okay, that's interesting to know, because you don't want to add too much weight to everything. That'll really slow you down. Okay, well, I guess that's really all the questions I have for you.
Cool.
I really appreciate you taking the time to do this today.
No problem,
And,
it's fun.
It was fun watching you drive today, and I need to sit there and watch more people drive and hopefully get a little bit quicker. Thank you so much for watching my videos and supporting me. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and most importantly, comment below. Please let me know if the videos helped you, what you would like to see in the next videos, and if there's anything we can do to make the quality of the videos better for you, that would be great. If you're a vendor and you'd like to send me something to review, a product review, or would like to sponsor me for racing, my email is just down here. Send me an email, we'll work it out. Other than that, collab on, guys.